Hi there. Let me just click on this real quick and get it out of the way. Okay, so um, before I give a talk, I start writing down songs. Like I'll be driving in the car and I'll hear a song and I'll think, I could use that one. And this time there were two songs and I couldn't decide, where is this talk going to go? And Spirit always guides me, so I don't worry too much about that if I get out of the way. So I'm like, okay, which song do I use? Well, the next two times I got in the car, as soon as the radio came on, I heard this song. So I like, okay, this is the one you want me to use. It ends up I'm going to use the words to both songs in this talk, parts of the words. So you get doubly blessed here by this music, although it'd only be the words for the second one. So I went to print out the lyrics to this song so I'd have them and I could read them. And this article came up, and it was like 5 things that Christians can do during the election season. Now, I could just, if all of you had been here early and listened to Terry and Neil, you wouldn't need to listen to me right now because they had it all laid out. But I'm going to add a few things. So, this article I'm going to share with you, and there's 5 things, but I've added 2 more. So I was guided to use that. And right now, I mean, it's really crazy, right? There's so much division and anger and even hatred. And in a couple of days, we're going to have a new president. Well, let's hope that it's a couple of days and it's not like 2000 that took quite a while. But we'll have a new president. So we may have the first ever female president, or we may have someone who's already had that experience, someone who will have their second term. But whoever wins, a large portion of our population, of the voters, and even maybe non-voters, will be upset. And some are going to be very upset. And Spirit asked me to take a look from a place in the middle, which was fine with me because, like in college, all these people were pledging sororities. I didn't. I stayed an independent. And I've actually never registered as a particular party, with a particular party. Although I voted almost always one way, I just have stayed independent. So I'm not here to try to sway anybody or convince anybody or anything. My background is in counseling. My concern is for people's mental health, people's well-being, and people's spiritual health. So that's what Spirit's guiding me to do today. So I'm here to help us through these next few days and the days ahead, whoever wins. And the song states, I don't want to love what the world loves. I don't want to chase what the world does. I only want you. I only want you. So what I want to say is God has a plan for this country. We may not understand it. We may not know what it is. It may look horrible from our perspective, our mental, our view. We don't know what God has planned. So we have to stay open. We have to stay in our hearts. We have to trust in our inner life. We have to go inside when we're in turmoil Now, maybe we'll be elated, maybe we'll be so happy. And still, we have to be mindful of those around us. Um, so, can we start this time together believing that God does have a plan for this country and a love for this country? I mean, this country was built on a belief in God. You know, it's been here since this country was created. So God knows the hearts of the candidates like we never could. We get to see a perspective, a vision, a portrayal, but we really don't know the hearts of the candidates. Only God can do that. Only God knows the true essence of that person. Because God's essence is in everyone, even someone you can't stand. God's essence is in them. So God can use anyone for his purposes, can use anyone. And it makes me think of Saul, who became Paul. He was a man who hated Christians. He was a man who persecuted Christians. And he had a come to Jesus moment for sure. And in that moment, he awoke and became a Christian himself and became one of the greatest champions for God's word. So we have to remember that. The Bible is full of people who changed, you know, who shifted. So I'm not portraying anybody, but both sides have a vision of the opposite. And we don't know if that vision is true or not. So I'm saying this for both. Now, the article states, as believers, how do we approach this election season in a way that's healthy and honoring to God? And it says here are 5 suggestions, but I have 7. So number 1 is listen to each other. Well, Terry, you can giggle, but Spirit always has extra for me to add in. Listen to each other. James 1:19 says, you must be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Many people are so focused on preparing their responses, they don't take the time to really listen. James advises leading with ears, not your mouth. And I'm going to say, also lead with your heart. So yesterday, I actually saw a video that was pretty stressful about a woman was just out walking and she came across a man walking his dog, and I guess it didn't show because it was her video. I guess she had on something that portrayed one particular candidate. And this man just went berserk on her and started calling her really nasty female names. And I've actually heard people call the female candidate a couple of these names. And it was very stressful. And I don't understand how people can get so triggered by an article of clothing, that it's just so that they're so full of whatever that they can't even be. I mean, we're all Americans, right? We're all here for this country. And what happened though is instead of me getting angry, I found myself having compassion for this man, which was unique in this time frame with all this. But I really saw how much pain he was in, that he would do this, that he would use such nasty names. And anyway, so we don't know what we're going to come across when this election happens and even up to it. And I was able to listen to that man's heart underneath the outer, which was beautiful. I thank Spirit for that. Now, my roommate came home last week and shared with me he had gone out to lunch with, I'm going to turn my sound up a little bit. He had gone out to lunch with a friend, and they're totally opposite on the political, but they used to do things together at the senior center. And he came back and he said, I think she's mad at me. And so he explained that she had heard a snippet, I don't know, on TV or online or something. And she had assumed that it meant something. And she was like, how can you support this commentator? And he said, I think you've taken it out of context. So he went back and he sent her the longer thing. And I don't know if he's heard from her now or not, but what he said afterwards, he said, I've misconstrued things too. I've had moments where I misunderstood. And so he didn't hold it against her. He didn't like, you're crazy lady or anything like that. He just was able to have compassion for her. Both sides, whatever side you're on, it's hard to understand the mindset of the other. It's just sometimes very hard. But the other thing is, Spirit guided me to really listen to both candidates. If we're just listening to sound bites like this woman did, it can be misconstrued. It can be misunderstood. And we think the person said one thing when really it was taken out of context. So are we really listening to both sides? That's not to vote. I'm more concerned about after all of this happens. Although Spirit did guide me up to this time to vote, to really listen to both candidates. And because, in the past, for years, I didn't really pay attention. I just made my decision based on outer. I didn't really think about it or listen. So listening is really important. Number 2, look for common ground. In 1 Corinthians 9:22, Apostle Paul wrote, yes, I try to find common ground with everyone. Paul knew it was his responsibility to find common ground with people, not the other way around. Regardless of how different the views of others may be, look for what you can agree on and build on. So Terry was talking earlier about how Kamala is talking about she's the candidate for everyone. So if she wins and that's her truth, then we can find common ground with that because we're all Americans, right? And then there's people that are very passionate about women's issues and very passionate about gun safety. And so that's the common ground for some people. And then we have the other side. And, I actually have been following Bobby Kennedy Jr. for a few years online. So who doesn't want clean water and clean air and clean soil and, get the toxins out of our food? A lot of people think he's an anti-vaxxer, but that's not true. All his children were vaccinated. So whoever comes out to the forefront, can we look at what we can find common ground with? Um, Also, he's talking about getting the fluoride out of the water. And I've known for years, I've been buying spring water for years. So um, I think we can find common ground there if that ends up being our future. So, number three, let go of controlling tendencies. In Mark 10:17-27, a man walks away from Jesus after getting an answer he didn't want. So his answer was, go sell everything and give it to the poor. And he's like, no way, Jose, I'm out of here. But notice Jesus didn't chase after him. He let him go. When someone disagrees with you, don't try to convince or control them. Realize everyone is entitled to their opinion. So Rumi states, when someone criticizes or disagrees with you, a small ant of hatred and antagonism is born in your heart. If you do not squash that ant at once, it might grow into a snake or even a dragon. The guy definitely on the video had become a dragon. He was fire breathing. So when we notice, we're taught to go inside in unity. We're taught to be mindful. So if we catch ourselves and use the mindfulness for our emotions, we can catch ourselves and keep ourselves from having a lot of inner pain and suffering. So Buddha said holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's like pretty intense, right? And then Jerry Champolsky said, would you rather be happy or right? Or would you rather be right or happy? So when this is all over and we have a new president, will we be mindful? Will we let go of controlling tendencies? Will we let go of it's my way, you know, dang it. Although it could be worse than dang it. And just be mindful of our hearts. God uses our hearts, and we may be the person who has compassion for somebody else that's struggling even more than us, that doesn't have the tools that we at Unity have. So number 4 is limit contact with negative people. In 1 Corinthians 5:33, the Apostle Paul says, bad company corrupts good character. Some people may be toxic for you to be around right now. If you find things getting out of hand, set boundaries to protect yourself. Remember, God hasn't called us to fight every battle. So I had a friend call me about a month ago. I hadn't talked to her for a while. She moved. And she had been to some retreat or something. And on the call, she she wasn't angry. It was just she was using the F word like over and over and over, not in an angry stance, but in a, I don't know why it wasn't being used as a cussing and it was just so grating on me, to hear it over and over and over and over again. And we don't have a lot of contact, so I don't have to worry there a whole lot. But that kind of thing, I didn't set boundaries. I didn't say, this is uncomfortable. Um, but I did have an experience a few years ago where um, it was a political conversation with someone, and um, I wasn't promoting Trump in the conversation at all. I was concerned about this person because she would just start ranting about Nazi and all this stuff, and I was like concerned for her because there was talk that something might happen concerning him, and I was concerned for her heart. So I shared something with her, and she just went off again. And I just, uh, I'm, if I'm going to have to hang up now if this doesn't stop. So I actually hung up on this person. And it's not for our highest good to listen to somebody rant and rave full of hate. Um, like I have compassion for her. But then she totally misconstrued what I said and told a common friend that you better look out for Kathleen. She's into this weird stuff. Like, okay, that's your perspective. So this goes back to listening again. Are you listening or are you projecting and making something real in your mind that's not real? Number 5, love no matter what. Jesus said in John 13:35, your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Love people even when people are unloving to you. Treat them like you would wish they would treat you. Now, I forgot to read some quotes on the last one. Um, and that was from Muji, who says, one day you will come to see and find peace in confirming that all this is nothing but thoughts believed in. Without a belief, a concept has no power. With belief, a concept can start a war. So are we looking at our thinking? Are we looking at our projections? Are we looking at how only God knows the truth, the heart of another? If you saw the Matrix movies, there's some people who believe we're in a bit of a matrix. And it's hard to trust what we're seeing because the truth is this. It's the kingdom. It's what's inside of us. That's the truth. So number 5 again is love no matter what. The Course in Miracles states, the holiest place on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. And again, we can talk about Paul and how he shifted so dramatically, so beautifully. Rumi says, to hate is an easy, lazy thing, but to love takes strength. Everyone has, but not all are willing to practice. So are we willing to practice in the season of the election, practice love? Because we all have it. It's all inside of us. It's right here. I've talked about these books that I read regularly, which are channeled very much like A Course in Miracles. This one is called A World Made New. It's the latest book. And in it, the guides say, now imagine there is a God that has what you call arms. Imagine there are, and imagine those arms outstretched to receive what it loves. What does God love but all things? You are the arms. God has come through you to hold the world, to lift the world, to reclaim the world in the name of the true Christ. The true Christ is the love of God instilled in human beings. And the Creator knows itself through its creation. We're the arms and hands and feet and voice and presence of God. And so it's, Terry said earlier when he was chatting, it's hard. The spiritual life is tough. We're humans. We get triggered, you know, we get pulled in my way. I'm not immune, believe me. So the sixth one that Spirit had me add is prayer, to pray. And I'm going to share with you the words of the second song. And it's called Somebody Prayed by David Crowder. Every night there by your bed, you fold your hands and bow your head, throwing out another prayer in faith when you're wondering if he's hearing you. Look at me, I'm living proof. I'm only right where I am today because somebody prayed. So I hit my knees because I've seen all heaven move. Don't matter if you hit rock bottom, my God pick you up when you call him. I pray, Father, please, because I've seen what he can do. Don't matter if the storm cloud coming, my God come through when you call him. These hands have no power, but there ain't an hour he don't come through. That's why when mountains move, I say, looks like somebody prayed. Still, I won't give up on you. I believe that anything can change when somebody prays. I've seen miracles come from feeble words. I've seen hospital rooms turned into cathedrals. I've seen freedom come to the prisoner. You can call me. You can't tell me that prayer don't work. So every night there by your bed, when you fold your hands and bow your head, not a single word you've ever said in vain, because he hears everything. That's why when mountains move, I say, looks like somebody prayed. So not long ago, we had two hurricanes back to back. We had Helene that did tremendous devastation. Tremendous devastation. And I have seen how prayer has worked with these two hurricanes. When Milton hit or was coming, there were prayers online that were asking God to please spare these people and to send this hurricane. I sent that prayer to the two private groups I'm in, and we prayed. And I know probably millions of others prayed because it was online. Milton went from a category 5 hurricane down to a 2. And yes, people did die. Things were damaged, but it wasn't anywhere near like North Carolina. But I want to tell you what prayer has done for North Carolina. People have stepped up. There have been pack mules carrying things. I've seen videos of just mule after mule after mule. I recently, and this one just like, these men, these miners from West Virginia came down to North Carolina and they built a road in 2 days between these two places. I can't remember the names. I think one was Black something. And they built a road that the powers that be said wouldn't be done for months. And they did it in 2 days. They brought on all of this equipment. So those people that were up in that mountain now they're getting food, they're getting water, they're getting generators, because so many people have prayed and so many people have come to the foreground. People have been donating all kinds of things to North Carolina. If you remember, what I said earlier is that we are God's hands. We are God's arms. Well, these hands can go just like this and pray for whatever comes. It's going to feel like a hurricane this week to some people. And you may be elated or you may be in that hurricane. And prayer works. Prayer will help us through this. Asking God to help us, help this country, bless this country. Number 7 is to spend time with the divine. Not just in prayer, but with asking for guidance, looking for direction, having the heaviness taken off your heart. And that's where this song comes in. I don't want to love what the world loves. I don't want to chase what the world does. I only want you. I only want you. First things first, I seek your will, not my own. Surrender all my wants to you. Keep the first things first, to live your truth, walk your ways, set my eyes. Lord, I fix my face on you. All my desires reversed, to keep the first things first. I give it all, my life an offering. My heart is yours. I only want you. First things first, I seek your will, not my own. Surrender all my wants to you. Keep the first things first. To keep the first thing first, to live your truth, walk your ways, set my eyes. Lord, I fix my face on you, all my desires reversed, to keep the first things first. To keep the first things first, all my desires reversed, to keep the first things first. First thing first, to keep the first thing first. So the first thing is God and the kingdom and the love in our hearts and the truth that God knows the path for this country, no matter what it looks like. Are we willing to trust that? Are we willing to give our desires over to God? Myself included, that the divine will bless this country and give us what we need, that more and more people can come back to Him, trusting, believing, and treating each other with love and respect and compassion, knowing that the divine lives in them too, no matter how covered up it is. And so we thank God for this time together and ask that each heart find a way to honor you and put you first. God bless.